Good morning. And I'll tell you, it's been a morning. I left the house a little early this morning, and Rick said, "Why are you leaving so early?" And I was like, "Oh, I want to, make sure I'm there on time and everything. Give a little time to kind of walk around and talk to everybody." And as I was driving, singing to some songs, driving along, my car died on 76 on the turnpike. There was a pop, and it just died. Thankfully, I was in the right lane and I was able to get over on the shoulder. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because yesterday Rick said, "Oh, you probably should take my truck to go up to Norristown." And I didn't even think anything of it. My car's 2003. It's an awesome car. It's 2003. But so anyway, I didn't even get flustered. I called Leslie, called AAA, Turnpike people came. Audrey came to pick me up, and I was here at 10:28. So Rick was asked to work at the inpatient unit for hospice this morning. So when he found out, we were at the table, and he looked up and he said, "Honey." So I was excited to be able to have an audience, to be able to share about Brazil, because you supported us and you gave us donations, and I never really have been able to tell you about it. So I do have a big poster out there with some pictures, I don't know if you saw them, of some of our Brazilian experiences. But I put together a PowerPoint because I'm married to the preacher. I do not preach, but I share, and I wanted to put this together. Is there any way to dim these lights a little bit so that we could see the pictures a little bit better? Aren't these beautiful girls? These are some girls who I met at an orphanage group home for homeless children. And we went to Brazil because Phil and Corrine Smith are American Baptist missionaries in Brazil, and they're in partnership with Hope Unlimited. And I'll share with you what the theme of Hope Unlimited is. This is one of their group homes. These girls are all homeless. Beautiful girls. Beautiful, beautiful girls. They're all 15. Okay, now let me see if I'm better at this than Rick. Oh, I pointed there. I don't point it at the screen. It doesn't look like it has a light on. Okay, let me see. Oh, there it is. It worked. Okay. So I'll point to you and you click. Yeah, I don't see a light on. Okay. This is Hope Unlimited's theme, transforming the lives of children at mortal risk, providing them and their future generations a productive future and eternal hope. What a beautiful ministry goal. So primarily they're working with children. Phil Smith grew up in Ethiopia. His father had a ministry in Ethiopia. Then the government shut them down. They worked also with homeless children. So they were looking for another place in the world where they could use their ministry skills. And in Brazil, there are a lot of homeless children because of extreme poverty. And extreme poverty, drug use, a lot of things. And in the cities, like in Rio de Janeiro, there were children sleeping on the streets, and the shop owners would get upset. So shop owners actually hired vigilante police and killed the children while they're sleeping. So that's how much respect the children got. And there were a lot of children running in the streets and hiding and trying not to get killed. But those kids on the streets had a very rough life. They said life expectancy on the street is 1 to 3 years. So a lot of children were just dying from the dangers of living on the street. Yeah. This is Phil and Corrine Smith. I know you can't. It works. Okay, thank you. I know you can't see their pictures very well. Corrine was in the United States. She's here on home assignment. And Phil came down especially for our trip. They have a son, Mark, and a daughter, Isabel. Like I said, they're in partnership. These are some of their ministries. Hope Mountain is where we spent most of our time. It's in the northern part of Brazil. And this is a residential group home for teen boys. They're all from ages 12 to 18. Some of them are there for their own safety because somebody wants to kill them. Others are there. These are the most high-risk children. So they're all teen boys. And at this center, they have 3 group homes. They have house parents, and they have 3 different group homes within the facility. And also they have this awesome vocational school where they teach the boys all kinds of skills, and then they take a bus, go out to the community and gather. They go into this very poor area and pick up all kinds of adults and teens, bring them up to Hope Mountain and have vocational services and teach them skills. And this was really important for one of the projects that we did. They also have that, like the 3 girls were in that orphanage up in another town called Campinas, and they have a City of Youth campus, and they also have some orphanage stuff going on there, and also some vocational things and schooling. They have a church in Campinas that we went to, and this is for graduates, because a lot of these kids who've grown up on the street, then went to Hope Mountain, don't feel like they fit in society. And a lot of churches don't want a bunch of former street kids in their church. So they didn't feel comfortable anywhere, so they started their own church. So we went to that church, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I have a few pictures of them. And in town, and in some of the cities we went to, they have some thrift shops. So that some of the things that you gave, especially the jewelry, who raise a hand if you donated jewelry? They said that your jewelry was worth a lot of money because people can't afford jewelry, so they go to the thrift shop and get stuff from America. And they said that jewelry you donated was hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth. I mean, when they sell it. So thank you for that. And that money then goes towards the ministry. So they run several of these thrift shops. So they're very primarily self-sustaining. They do depend on Americans for some donations, but they try to do as much as they can to be self-sustaining. But you can imagine how expensive it would be to have all these orphanages with teens. Oops, this way. Got it. Okay. Oh, sorry. There you go. This is us on the bus going to JFK to head out. This is the group from First Baptist Church in York. The man in the back in the middle is Tim Munson. He's the pastor. And you can see that guy on the left. I think you know him. This was our t-shirt. My nephew designed it. This was our t-shirt that we wore, and these t-shirts were great because in a big crowd we could find each other because they were like fluorescent yellow. And this was our team verse, Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that was our theme verse for the trip. Brazil is a country of stark contrasts. The landscape is so beautiful. There's the ocean, there are mountains, there are plantations. It's just so beautiful. But the poverty is extreme, very extreme. Very small percentage of the population is middle class. It's either extreme poverty or a small percentage is very wealthy, and there's hardly anybody in between. Here you can see there are some boys sleeping on the street, and these would be some of the boys that this ministry would help. This is Christ the Redeemer statue, which is in Rio de Janeiro, which was breathtaking and beautiful. And that's the Brazilian flag. Here is an example of a favela. A favela is a Brazilian slum, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. You can find this amazing, beautiful shopping center or city, and right next to it, like right in the backyard, is this favela. And a lot of the homes are very makeshift. They would not pass any building codes. And we went to some of them, and what was that? Was that the sun? Wow. Hello, sun. Um, Many of the favela homes are just people putting things together themselves. And we did go to a favela, and it was um, very eye-opening and very humbling. And in fact, these two little kids were kids. She has a knife in her hand, and she had picked a lime. She was walking along with a knife this big and cutting up the lime that she picked off of a tree. Those are two kids from the favela. And this is Mateus, and this is his home. In the orphanage, they have a thing where they have to have connections with home. That has to be established. They have to keep their connection with home. So we were bringing him to his home in the favela, and his mother was not frequently not home. She was often out working. And his father was an alcoholic. So he had a couple sisters. We went there. The home was so primitive. It was, we all decided we couldn't even take pictures of it because it was so primitive. And it was shocking. It was shocking that someone could live in such primitive conditions. Yet, when we're here in this slum, in this favela at his home, we looked up, and there are papaya trees and mangoes and avocados. And we said, you look down and it's horrific poverty. And you look up and it's glorious. What a contrast. It was unbelievable. You see all the beautiful food that God provides. And here we are in this absolute squalor. His father wasn't home when we went, but we had gotten some groceries, and we filled up the refrigerator and left some groceries for him. We did meet his sister, who was down the street, and she came by. Here we are at Hope Mountain. That says Montana de Esperanza, which is the Mountain of Hope. And it's a crazy story about how they got the property. And it was beautiful how they got this property. And they've worked so hard to make it. Oh, thank you for dimming the lights. Look at that. You can see it so much better. They've done a lot of work to make the property beautiful, because when they first got it, it was just very rough. On the left are some students from the vocational school that I met. And we were leaving, and they were yelling out the window goodbye. And over here, I think you know that couple over there. That whole mountain there is granite. That mountain is granite. He said it's 100% granite rock back there. Here's a culinary class that we went to. If any of you donated white t-shirts, this is what they use in the culinary class. You can see some of them have their white t-shirts on. So whenever they go in the kitchen, they wear those white t-shirts. And Sammy, the one with the glasses squatting down, she's the teacher. And she was amazing. Some people in our group spent time in the culinary arts class, and they made some stuff with the students. But I love this girl in the front. I talked to her quite a bit. She's adorable. The girl with the big smile. And they had a big auto detailing, auto body repair section. And these are mostly guys from, I think only 2 of those guys are students from the orphanage. The rest of them are all from the community. And they are learning important skills so that they can have their own businesses. And we talked to a few of them, and they told us, like one guy said, I dropped out of school. I didn't see that it was important. And now I'm 30 years old and I have no skills. So I want to learn these skills so I can work, so I can either have my own business or work for someone. So what a great ministry, like supporting not only these kids, but that whole community, going out and giving them skills so that people can get out of poverty and can survive. This was one project that we worked on. There was a big empty classroom. Well, actually, it was full of junk, and we had to clean it out. and we painted it. We cleaned the floors. We painted the ceilings and the walls. And somebody had donated all these sewing machines. And so the director wanted us to start, get this room ready to have sewing courses. So we cleaned, those sewing machines were filthy. We cleaned the sewing machines. We designed the whole room. It was so much fun. Like to feel like, oh, we had a little part in maybe having some woman learn sewing skills so she can feed her family. So while we were there, Phil Smith called this company of the machines. He made some other connections and got someone to teach the course, the sewing company to donate some materials, and it was amazing. So this course was supposed to will start in July. So next week, I guess. So they'll invite people in the community to come and learn sewing skills. So here we are. This man on the right, his name is Mark Isabel. He actually was a Delta airline pilot, and he had read an article about Hope Mountain. So one time when he was flying through Brazil, his flights came through Brazil often, he took a taxi and went up here and met Phil Smith. And he has been donating his time, his resources, getting his church hooked up for 25 years. He's been involved with this ministry. So he happened to be there the same time we were, and he worked on this sewing room too. Doesn't it look cool? It looks so nice. You should have seen it before. And this boy on the left, this boy is typical of some of the boys who come there. He had been on the streets, and they said oftentimes the boys panic. You know, that fight or flight? They panic. And they go, I got to get out of here. I got to get back on the streets. And he ran away when we were there. He spent this whole afternoon with us painting. And that night he ran away. Well, then some of the people from the staff went down and they found him in the town, brought him back. And it was a big drama, trying to get him to understand how important it would be for him to stay. But because these kids have been through trauma, logic doesn't always work because they've had very difficult things happen to them. And sometimes they think, oh, it's better on the street. I have freedom. This is Kim and I. We bought these mannequins for the sewing class, and we bought a bunch of different supplies to put the materials in. Look at this outlet. It did not have a plug on it. So the custodian put the wires right into the outlet. I was horrified. I was like, ah, are you sure that's safe? I couldn't believe he did that. He just put them right into the holes without the little, I was like, okay. They had a whole beauty school. Some of the women were working, actually they were working on the nails when we were there, but they have classes on hair cutting, hair dyeing, and several of these women we talked to, so amazing. A couple of them had started up little salons in their homes. And that's what a lot of these women are going to do. They're just going to be self-employed because they learn this skill and they're going to find other customers in their community that they can make some money. This is Nicole from York. She said, I have never had red nail polish in all my life. It was bright, bright red. And then this is Mercedes over here. Mercedes is actually from Mexico, and she spoke fluent Spanish, so she was helpful. Every once in a while when we couldn't understand each other, she could kind of semi-translate with the Spanish. And see, look, she's got two of them working on her. But these ladies, we heard some of their testimonies. Oh, it was beautiful. And most of them are from the community because, like I said, the orphanage is just for the boys. This is the culinary arts. Look at those boys. We would be working, and it was hot. It was February. It was 90, 95. And when we were doing that sewing room, we were just dripping, like soaked. And then these boys would come along with some beautiful thing that they had made in the kitchen with some really great juice of some fruit I had never heard of before. And because that heat just wipes you out. But look at those boys working in the kitchen. Isn't that awesome? There they have our white t-shirts that we donated. And they were very, very serious. Oh, on the left, see, they're making the chocolate cakes. And that's Sammy teaching them about how to make the chocolate cakes. And you have to make cakes totally different there because of the altitude and the heat. One of the Americans tried to use her recipe, and it flattened because of the heat and altitude. This is the bus that brings all these, so you can see there's an older man there are teenagers. That guy with his back to us is from the auto detailing. He's one who's in his 30s. These are all kids from the community. So that bus goes, and you should see the roads. Little tiny bumpy, stone, and you're driving along, and really small little narrow streets that this bus goes around and picks up all these kids. And they have like 300 people from the community come in for the vocational classes. Isn't that amazing? What a ministry. Oh, I think you know this guy. This is Nova Esperanza, which means new hope. This is the church started by the graduates of Hope Mountain. Now, you can see in the back, I wish I could blow that up. That's like a favela back there. Tons and tons of little tiny houses back there. And actually, when we came up to this, I was like, ooh, this kind of looks like a jail rather than a church. And when you go in that tunnel, it's like this dark concrete, but it becomes alive when all those kids start singing. And they have a lot of, when we were there had to be about 200 young people, all young. They're all young. They're like from little babies, because these graduates now are having families and they're bringing their families there. So a lot of young people. This was one of the young families. These two are a young married couple, and they had a new baby, and there was a baby dedication of this little baby. And look at their bright smiles. Can you see the joy on their face? It's just beautiful. This was one of the orphanage group homes. They get some government funding, so they have to follow some of the government rules, and the government doesn't like all kids in one big group. They want them all out in the community in small group homes. And Phil is not a fan of that because he loses touch with them. So this is one of the government ones, and also they won't let you have all boys or all girls. You have to have boys and girls in the group home. These are the group home parents. They were amazing. These people work so hard with these kids because now these kids all go to schools just like everybody else does. They don't have a special school, but some of these kids had just come off the street. We got to go to a wedding, Flavia and Marconi. And Marconi was a graduate from the program. He had a very, very heart-wrenching story about many brothers and sisters. His father was murdered. His mother died in her sleep, and they were all orphaned. There were 7 or 8 of them. So he tells a story about all his siblings getting put in all different places, and he had a very, very severely disabled brother. And that's all he could think about was this brother. And he ran away from Hope Mountain several times looking for his brother. And it turned out that he found the brother, and Hope Mountain worked it out so the brother could come. And that brother is still at Hope Mountain helping him because Marconi works at Hope Mountain. This is Sammy, and this is her culinary arts group made this cake with some of the Americans helping out. When it was so hot in this wedding, we were watching the cake during the ceremony, and we're going, I think it's going to fall. I think it's going to fall, because we could see it was so hot. And we were like watching it kind of shift and kind of. This is Marconi. This is the groom. The groom, Marconi, was busy cleaning out our sewing classroom. This is how they cleaned it out. Look how they stacked that up. We were all dying, like, really? This is how we're going to do this? Like, can we get a bigger truck or something? And they drove with all that stuff stacked like that. But this is what I mean by the contrast. Look at the beautiful surroundings, the beauty. There's so much beauty. We visited Marconi's home that night, and he was one of the 12 graduates we met, and he shared a very, very, very agonizing story. He could hardly talk about it he couldn't even get through the story the whole time because it was so heart-wrenching. And many of his siblings are drug addicts and living on the street or not doing very well at all. He said his dream is to have his whole family back together again. This is the wedding. And right before the ceremony, her pastor was supposed to do the ceremony. Right before the ceremony, they come up to Rick and say, the pastor's not going to do it. Can you do the ceremony? And we're like, okay, we're in Brazil, things are just different than in America. So this is Rick. On the left of him is Pastor Tim. So they both worked some things out. Rick was doing the blessing of the rings. You can see he's holding them. And to the left of Pastor Tim is the translator translating. In this hall, we had to have it indoors for some reason, I don't know, but it was 105 degrees. No air conditioning, no fans. Still hot air, where you just feel that drip going down your back, You just feel, and you're just like, don't move, just don't move, and I won't feel it as much. It was so, so hot. And we had see the lights in the back? Like an hour before the ceremony, we were still fooling with that whole thing. And Phil Smith and a couple of us are trying to put that thing together because we were in this big blank hall. And we're like, this doesn't look like a wedding. We have to make it look like a wedding. So we were fooling with decorations up until almost the last minute. But it looks nice. And it was beautiful. All the boys came from the orphanage. And most of them, it had been the first time they had seen a wedding. So that was really, really nice. And Flavia works at the Hope Mountain. And Marconi, like I said, was one of the graduates. And then he came back and he works and does a lot of the construction and janitorial stuff like that. And he was so cute when we went to his house and he said, I fell in love with Flavia when I was a boy the first time I saw her. And they've dated for 9 years or something because, she knew his background and she wanted to make sure he was stable. And so it was a pretty amazing story. Here's look at Rick showing off his muscles there with the boys. Someone from the church donated some money for some of the sports equipment. Do you see the boys with the soccer balls and the soccer shirts? They love their soccer. They love their soccer. And one of their events that they have there is they invite teams to come up and compete. They have a beautiful open field. So that's one of their fundraisers is to invite teams to come and compete and have a big soccer day. The boy in the middle with the blue, he loved Rick. He is Mark Smith, Corrine and Phil's son. And he speaks fluent Portuguese. He is an amazing kid. And he spent the whole week with us. And this is Bruno, the one who's arm wrestling with Rick. That boy is a big boy and such a smart kid. We spent a lot of time talking with him. And of course, Rick, he's going to challenge you. Hey, you want to arm wrestle? And the boy up on the top, do you know what can you tell that's Philippians 4:13? I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. That's in Portuguese. And that boy is Juan. And we went out one night to a pizza shop. Took all the boys. And he's 18. He had never been to a restaurant. Never in his whole life. And so he was so excited. And he kept saying, hey, hey guys, this is my first time. It's my first time. And then when we're eating pizza, they had him stand up and everyone clapped that it was first time, and he cried. He cried that it was first time he'd ever been out to a restaurant. Here we are. See what I mean? Really hot. We had to stand in line. My head felt like it was going to burn. So I put it's a bag on my head. And here we are. We were on our way to see the Christ the Redeemer. And this is our group. There were 11 of us from York. And it was amazing to see Christ the Redeemer in person. Adoniram Judson started the American Baptist Foreign Mission Society in 1814. And this is a quote of his: "Our future is as bright as the promises of God." And there I conclude my presentation.